Hi there all you action hounds. It's time for another top 5 video. This is my video series where I talk about some of my favorite films in different genres. It might be horror, it might be action, it might be sci-fi. For this one I'm going to talk about just a few of my favorite action movies of all time. So many phenomenal action movies. I could list dozens, if not hundreds of great action films because I'm not picky. I love a good roaring action movie. I went with my gut instinct on these, and these are the 5 that popped up on my list, and I'm just going to go with these and talk about these 5 in particular. But just like last time, I'm going to mention a lot more wonderful action movies in the description below. So if you want to see some honorable mentions or movies that could have been included on this list, check the description below. I'm going to start with number 5. It's going to be Conan the Barbarian with Arnold Schwarzenegger. You might say this is a fantasy movie. So you're going to see a lot of crossover in this category. There's going to be a lot of sort of fantasy action, a lot of sci-fi action, a lot of kung fu action. So you could sort of argue, is this a pure action movie? Well, this is my personal list, so I'm just going to include this one anyway. Conan the Barbarian is a fantastic film. There's something sort of ironic about this whole list, but I just love how bombastic and testosterone driven this film is. The score by Basil Polidoris, is that his name? It's just wonderful. It was really the breakthrough role for Arnold Schwarzenegger. The photography is phenomenal in this film, and the direction by John Milius is just, it's almost hysterically masculine. It is so overblown, bombastic, powerful, the riddle of steel, the whole chrome. I love that stuff. I love it so much. Like I can watch this film as a serious film and enjoy it, but on some level I'm also seeing it almost like on an ironic level because it is a little dated, a little cheesy, but it's awesome. I'm gonna use that word a lot. It's really awesome. Like, I'm not above watching a really good popcorn movie and a really fun sword and sandal movie, and this is probably the best. What I like about this one in particular is that it's not sort of highfalutin fantasy. You know what I mean? There's nothing pretentious about it. It's just from the heart and down to the gut, and it's really, you can hear that in the score. It's got this sweeping fantasy, but at the same time it's got this gritty, bloody, masculine, testosterone-driven feel. Really a masterpiece. I do have the remake as well. I enjoy the remake, but I don't think it's nearly as good as the original. So if you haven't seen the original Conan the Barbarian, check it out. It's phenomenal. And a more recent movie for number 4. It's gonna be Dredd. That's right. This is the Karl Urban version of Dredd. This came out 2012, I think. It's only been about 3 or 4 years since this movie came out, but it is just fantastic. I regret it now, but I should have watched this in theaters. We should all have watched this in theaters. Unfortunately, this movie didn't make a lot of money, so they're not planning to make a sequel for this anytime soon. That's because we didn't go see it in theaters. I thought this movie looked phenomenal. I meant to go see it, but I don't think I could, or I was busy at the time, or I don't know what happened, but I don't know. A lot of us missed this in theaters, but it has since become sort of a cult classic. This is a stylistic, really hard, tough, gritty, down to the bone, bloody action film. Karl Urban is perfect for Dredd. Forget Stallone. This is one of the only times you're ever going to hear me say this, but this is a part where Sylvester Stallone was not meant to play the part. Karl Urban nails the role of Dredd. He's just unflinching. He's got the voice down. We never actually see his eyes or his face perfect because we're not supposed to see Dredd. Based on the classic comic book character, of course, and he's just hard as nails. Also a visually gorgeous film, a lot of beautiful slow-mo. Slow-mo also happens to be the name of the drug that they're peddling in this area. Peach Trees, this sort of building complex which is full of criminals, where Dredd and his rookie Anderson go to clear out this vile nest of vermin, I guess you might say. Anyway, pretty much a non-stop action thrill ride, but I really love the gritty, tough, bloody. You're gonna sense a theme in this video because it's all about the gritty, tough, and hard as nails take no prisoners, no holds barred awesomeness action movie, you know what I mean? I think this is also rated R if I'm not mistaken, pretty sure, because it is very violent and gruesome, but in a good way. If there was a Kickstarter for a sequel to this, I'd be all over that shit. You'd better believe that, for sure. I love it, so just a phenomenal film. If you still haven't seen this, if you like action movies and you like Judge Dredd, come on. Forget Sylvester Stallone. This is how you do a Dredd movie. Coming in at number 3. This is actually a box set, and it's appropriate because you could have any Rambo film at number 3 probably. This is the trilogy set, but I also have the 4th one. John Rambo, or simply Rambo as it's known in Sweden. It's very confusing, I know. But I love this so much. I love you. The Rambo films are just the sort of masculine testosterone action films of the 80s, the sort of Reagan era, the sort of absurdist action glamour. There's a kind of strange heroic quality to the sort of mass slaughter of people, and it ends with power ballads from his brother Frank Stallone, which is so weird. He'll mow down like 1 million people, and then all of a sudden you'll hear a song about, you know, love and let's end the war and things like that. It's like this strange dichotomy that you could only really pull off in the 80s. But anyway, the one that I really want to talk about is the second one, Rambo First Blood Part 2. That's right, First Blood Part 2. So it's not Second Blood, it's the First Blood, but it's the second part of the First Blood. Anyway, the second Rambo movie, I'll just call it Rambo 2. That's the one that really, I don't know, it's the sort of the most charming one for me. The first one is more down to earth and a fantastic film in its own right. All of these movies are great. But I feel like the second one is sort of the Rambo that everybody thinks of. When you think of Rambo, you sort of think of the buff guy with the, you know, red headband shooting explosive arrows at Vietnamese soldiers and stuff. That's Rambo 2 in a nutshell. Like the scene where he falls in love. This is not a big spoiler. It's Rambo, you know. He falls in love in one scene, and she pretty much dies in the next one. And then he goes on this crazy rampage, and it's just beautiful. This film is like a symphony of, I don't know, crazy 80s style and violence, and there's some sort of crazy irony to these films that is just delicious in the best way. I love these films. I could watch these all day long and never get tired of them. I could literally just sit and watch these like on a loop just all day long. I love them so much. They're so great. The first one is a really good film. The second one is a great action movie. The third one is also a really absurd, crazy, fun action movie. And the fourth one was great too. The fourth one sort of takes it back to a darker place where it's more violent and visceral, and takes place in Burma. And honestly, I wouldn't mind if Rambo 4 is the end of the series. I think Rambo 4 ended beautifully. I think that's all you have to say. You can close it all down there. And I think Sly said recently that there's not going to be any more. I hope so, at least. I mean, there's been talk of a Rambo 5, but you don't need to make a Rambo 5. Just leave it as it is. It's pretty much perfect the way it is, I think. But yeah, if you haven't seen Rambo, do yourselves a favor. Check out all 4 movies. They're just action masterpieces. They're just like the crowning achievement of this sort of overblown, absurd action. I was watching Rambo 3 with my sister at one point, and we decided, just for kicks, we would count the number of explosions in the movie. And about, 20-30 minutes later, we stopped counting when we hit 100. So, I mean, that gives you kind of a sense of what kind of movies these are. So they just, I love them so much. Coming in at number 2, Kill Bill, Volume 1. A lot of people tend to think of Kill Bill as one single story. Some people tend to think of it as Volume 1 and Volume 2. Some people tend to think of it as a single story. I'm going to mention Kill Bill Volume 1 for this one because that's the one that sticks out to me. I mean, I love the second one as well, but I feel like Volume 1 is just an astounding film. I was 15 when this came out. I saw it in theaters. I was just old enough to see my first R-rated movie in theaters. I had high expectations for this because I'd already seen Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction. But when I saw this, I was like, I mean, blown away. People talk about that moment in their life when they see a movie that sort of changes their whole perspective of movies, how they look at film, how they look at like a director and style and all of that. And Kill Bill Volume 1 was that movie for me. It's not a very dialogue heavy movie, but it is so stylish. So many homages to the past, to groundbreaking filmmakers, to Asian cinema, to Kung Fu cinema, to Bruce Lee, to 70s cinema in general. But at the same time, only Tarantino could have made this film. Only Quentin Tarantino could have done this. Only Uma Thurman could have played this role. There's nothing like this film. There will never, ever be anything quite like this film. And even though I sort of think of Tarantino as being pre-Kill Bill Tarantino and post-Kill Bill Tarantino, what I mean by that is his style changed pretty drastically after he made Kill Bill. I still don't feel like not even he can sort of recapture the magic that he had with, especially with Kill Bill Volume 1. I think Swedish newspapers wrote about it was the end of censorship, the death of censorship, because this movie was so absurdly violent that if you tried to censor this film, you just cut out the whole movie. So yeah, but I'm a big aestheticist. I love visual films. I love seeing something really cool. I'm almost like the story and the characters are almost secondary for me because I take it all in sort of visually first. That's just the way my brain tends to work. You can sort of understand why I like Volume 1 in particular because it is just a visual feast. It's like this absurdist, crazy, wonderful, colorful explosion of violence from start to finish. And it is just, I mean, it's beautiful. There's no other word for it. It's crazy, it's absurd, it's super violent, it's, it's so wild. Like, there's nothing quite like it, and I don't think there will ever be anything like it again. But what I loved about it was sort of being in the hands of a director that is in total control and you have no idea what's coming next. I mean, you have absolutely no idea what's going to happen in the next scene. Kill Bill Volume 1, very near and dear to my heart. And I still love, I love Tarantino in general. I love Pulp Fiction. I love Reservoir Dogs. I love Inglourious Bastard. I recently watched The Hateful Eight, and I think that's a really, really good film too. But, my favorite's always going to be Kill Bill. Just because it is this crazy action romp, and it's so visual, and it's so unique, and tightly woven, and edited, and created, and it's like, I don't know, it's almost like a madman made this film, but in a good way. You know what I mean? Like, there's something so wild and imaginative and unique and colorful and non-stop about this film that is just, I guess it's the way people talk about Mad Max Fury Road. They say it's a kind of a crazy visual thrill ride from start to finish, which I liked. I liked that movie a lot, but Kill Bill Volume 1, that's my crazy visual thrill ride for sure. Now, I mentioned there's going to be a lot of genre sort of blending and merging for this video. Couldn't help it, but this one counts as at least 3 different genres at the same time. Hope you'll go with me and understand on this. I'm going to talk about that. I had to give it to the Terminator. The first Terminator, James Cameron, Arnold Schwarzenegger, of course. I'll be back and all that. Yeah. The Terminator, to me, a lot of people love the second one. I prefer the first one. I mean, the second one is also a fantastic film, no doubt about it, but I prefer the first one, and I'll tell you why. I feel like the second one is more sci-fi action, whereas this one is more sci-fi horror or sci-fi thriller, if you really look at it. If you look at this film, it's almost like, a horror movie. It's like 2 people being chased by a monster, essentially. An unstoppable monster. It's almost like a slasher movie with guns, in a way. But at the same time, it's a sci-fi movie. It's got action elements. So it's sort of regarded as an action film, but I don't know, maybe I should have had this in the thriller category. Anyway, it led to a great action franchise, so I guess I'm putting this in the action category. And yeah, I've written a lot of reviews for this film. There's one on Letterboxd, which you can read in my description, which it's actually my most well-liked review of all time. It's got over 100 likes on Letterboxd, which is just mind-blowing to me. But yeah, anyway, I love the grit of this film. I love the fact that this was made in '84 when, Arnold was not a huge name yet and Cameron was not a huge name yet, and it's got that kind of guerrilla filmmaking style to it. And that adds to the atmosphere of this dark, sort of intense, non-stop, yeah, like I said, pretty much a thriller. I mean, here's this unstoppable killing machine who's coming after you, and he's about to kill you, and there's pretty much nothing you can do about it. And just the score, the way the effects work in this movie, there's something about the low budget in this film that I think enhances it in a way. I mean, I love the fact that T2 is bigger and bolder, had more of a budget, and it also progressed, visual effects, and it was mind-blowing for the time, which was like 91, I think. But this one just has a kind of intimate, it's really hard to explain, but you feel it when you see this movie. You kind of feel the grit and the texture of this movie. Like there's something tangible about it, something dark and intense, and it's one of those films that really captures for me the early 80s. If you watch a lot of 80s movies, you'll notice that there's kind of a shift somewhere around 84, 85. So you have early 80s movies which tend to be darker and more gritty, kind of more of a holdover from the 1970s, if you will. And then it sort of shifted in the mid 80s to something brighter, more positive, more leg warmers and puffy hairdos and stuff like that. But the whole sort of tone changed too, if you think about it. Like, think about Friday the 13th, which I talk about a lot. The first 4 movies of Friday are really dark. They're really like pretty serious horror movies. Essentially the same thing. This killer's coming after you and he's going to kill you no matter what you do. Then it sort of shifted, and by the late 80s, you had this, unstoppable killer, but it was more jokey, it was a little bit more tongue-in-cheek. It had sort of survived itself. But that's sort of true for the whole decade, I think. And this one definitely captures that sort of raw, gritty, anything can happen period of the early 80s, where you had these explosive filmmakers and talents just making, budget filmmaking that still really holds up today. Sure, there are effects in this movie that don't look too great these days, especially like that mirror scene when he's performing surgery on himself and you see the sort of dummy head on Arnold. That doesn't look too good, I'll admit that much. But overall, I still think this is a darkly intimate film. It's relentless, well made. The story is brilliant. Arnold is perfect for Terminator. Michael Biehn is perfect for Kyle Reese. Linda Hamilton. You have this wonderful arc with Sarah Connor and all that. Everything you could say about the Terminator is it's easier to just watch it. Just watch the Terminator, the original 84 Terminator. Forget about all the sequels. Even forget about Terminator 2 for a while if you can. Just put that movie aside for a moment. Watch this movie on its own terms, on its own merits. Just this one movie. Turn down the lights and watch it from start to finish, and hopefully you'll see what I mean about this. Like, these films don't exist anymore. There's nothing like this anymore. We may have gritty films, we may have low budget films, but I don't think we'll ever quite see something like this particular period in time when movies like these were made. So it has to be number one for me, I think. It's an intense, almost horror sci-fi action movie. Still, when I watch this, I sort of get, not goosebumps, but I get sort of the chills. I'm like, holy crap, is he I've seen the movie like 200, 300 times already, and I'm like, is he gonna get him this time? Is he gonna, because you get that feeling, like a good movie gives you that intense worry. That's the Terminator for you. Pretty astounding movie in my opinion. I'm definitely one of those guys that's like, yeah, I love T2 and I love Aliens, but remember the first one? Like, wasn't the first one more intense? Come on. I prefer a more low budget, intense, intimate, scary film, I guess. Not to rack too much on T2 or Aliens. Those were also fantastic films by James Cameron. Hasta la vista, baby. That's my video of my top 5 action movies. Like I said, a lot of different genres. It's not like quote-unquote pure action, but hopefully you'll understand where I'm coming from, because it's very hard to sort of try to find really pure action movies. What do you go to? Like, sure, you could argue Die Hard or, I don't know, stuff like that, but come on, you have to keep an open mind with these things, I think. Alright, in summary, it was The Terminator, Kill Bill Volume 1, Rambo, particularly Rambo First Blood Part 2, Dread, and Conan the Barbarian at number 5. But I mean, numbers are almost inconsequential. Any of these could be number 1, any of these could be number 2. All of these are just great films. They're just great films, period. So just watch them all. Watch and enjoy them all, and I'll leave lots more in the description below as well. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Hope to do more in the future, but it's gonna be a really busy time. 3 days left until Daredevil Season 2. Looking forward to that. And 8 days away from Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. That's pretty nuts. Alright, hope you like this video. I'll catch you in the next one.